Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
We're live from Denver with an update on the state of the U.S. beef cattle industry. We'll have an expert panel to take your questions on the issues that impact your bottom line as a beef producer. Get ready to call right now.
And now, a live edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with host Kevin Ochsner.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us. We're coming to you live tonight to update you on the state of the U.S. beef cattle industry and to show you how the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is working on behalf of its members. So far, 2013 has been one for the record books. The cattle industry has been impacted by damaging floods and devastating blizzards. And on the positive side, we're seeing some record cattle prices. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, policy issues such as the Farm Bill, immigration reform, and more have been stalled. Tonight, we've assembled a panel of experts who are ready to take your questions about these and other cattle industry issues. Whether it's about something happening in Washington, D.C., or a question about cattle production techniques, or even NCBA policy, we'll tackle them all tonight. So get ready to ask your questions. The number to call is 1-888-824-6688, or you can email your question to c2c@beef.org. And joining us in the studio this evening are J.D. Alexander. He's the immediate past president of NCBA and a cattle feeder in Pilger, Nebraska. All the way from Washington, D.C., Christina Butts serves as the executive director for legislative affairs at the NCBA offices there in Washington. Ryan Rupert is the Senior Director of Beef Quality Assurance and Producer Education right here in Denver for NCBA. And Kate Maher, she's the Director of Member Services for NCBA. I want to welcome you all and thank you all for coming and participating in this live show this evening. And we want to get started right away, folks, with some questions that we got actually earlier today via email. I've got one here that came from Judy in Lamoni, Iowa. She said, when can we expect to see a farm bill out of Washington, D.C.? Christina, that sounds like a good question for you.
Well, I can tell you that that's top of mind for a lot of folks in Washington, not only NCBA. For more than 2 years, we've been working on trying to get a 5-year farm bill completed. 2 weeks ago, the House and Senate conferees came together for their first public meeting to start talking about the differences on the two bills. The House is back in session this week along with the Senate. We know those talks are going to continue. We're hopeful over the next 2 weeks before the Thanksgiving recess we can make some really good progress on that front. And many members on the conference committee are saying that they want a conference report by December the 15th. Now that will still have to be passed by both the House and the Senate before it can be signed into law. So we still have some time ahead of us, but it looks hopeful that we're going to get a farm bill done before the Christmas break.
Well, that is very, very encouraging news. And another question relative to policy a bit. I don't know who wants to take this. Bill from Wheatland, California wrote us, where does the country of origin labeling law stand now and how has it impacted trade? It's been a huge, huge issue, J.D. You've seen a lot of it in the media lately. Update us on where we stand with COOL.
You know, we could have a show just with that alone,
sure,
as big as this topic is. But I think the bottom line is this, is that, you know, Mexico and Canada have filed that it is unfair and unjust. And the WTO, the World Trade Organization, has sided with them. So as a result, we've had to come up with some answers to justify it and come up with the reasoning that would be satisfactory to both Canada and Mexico. Unfortunately, this time they have not done that. Canada and Mexico have indicated they will have retaliations. The unfortunate thing with that is it may not just be on beef, but other products that our country sells them as well. Our position, the NCBA, has been that we want to be at the world trade and we need to move our beef around the world. Mexico and Canada are two biggest customers for beef. So we're hoping it gets worked out and we'll see, once again, similar to the Farm Bill, how it plays out.
Yeah. It sounds like we have our first caller. We've got Gaylord from South Dakota. Gaylord, thanks for calling tonight. What's your question?
Just kind of wondering what the panel thinks is going to happen with this blizzard in western South Dakota, and if the government's going to step in and help them, or they're thinking about going on vacation again.
A huge question. I mean, I can't think of anything more devastating, first of all, than losing those cattle, but more importantly, not having any kind of support right now, Christina, to know whether these folks qualify and there's money for disaster assistance or not. Tell us the update on that.
Well, that's a great question. When you went back to the 2008 Farm Bill, even though that was authorized for 5 years, the disaster programs were only authorized for 4. So for the last 2 years, our cattle producers that have been devastated by the drought, by the floods, by the blizzard, have not had that assistance or that safety net provided by the federal government. So I'm happy to report that both the Senate and the House versions of the Farm Bill do include disaster assistance. It does make those payments retroactive for the previous 2 years when we didn't have those authorization programs in place. So as long as we get a 5-year Farm Bill done, it's going to be much beneficial, much more beneficial, obviously, to those producers impacted by these disasters. So there's been a lot of momentum on Capitol Hill because of the blizzard in South Dakota as well as Nebraska, and trying to make sure that those policymakers are talking about these safety net programs that are out there. So we're pushing hard. It's a top priority for NCBA. It's a priority for many members on the conference committee, and we're going to see how this kind of plays out over the next few weeks during the conference negotiations.
Yeah, I was just in FSA last week with the flood issues, and went through the application process, but they said the same thing. Until we have a farm bill, you can apply, but clearly there's no money.
Well, that's also, just to let you know, a lot of the confusion. I think a lot of people thought that the government shutdown impacted these FSA offices, but that wasn't the case.
Right.
The authorization expiring 2 years ago means that those programs are not available for producers, period. So regardless of the shutdown, that wouldn't have made much of a difference for producers impacted by that blizzard.
This has also been a great thing for the cattlemen to cattlemen. I mean, we've seen cattlemen from all across the nation help out these people that got hit with this, and that is just a good standard of what we see within our industry.
You're right about that. We've got Steve from Kentucky calling. Stephen, go ahead.
Well, I heard you talking about the FFA. I myself am an FFA member. I'm a young cattleman. In a few years, I'm going to be hoping to start up my own operation.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that even though you have cattle prices that are at a record high, you also have land prices and equipment prices and other breeding stock prices that are at a record high. But the main question is, though, that because of these two factors, does the future look bright for cattlemen that are going to be starting up in the next few years?
That's a great question, Stephen, and I've got an awful soft spot in my heart for FFA, so I'm glad to hear that. JD, what's your read on that? That's a great question Stephen poses.
It is a question, and that's reality. I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
I'm a third generation. My son is running our operation today and is a fourth, and hopefully one of my grandchildren will eventually take over. And I think that's a good thing about our industry is we never sell out. We're always building it to make it better for the people running it, the environment, and turn it to the next generation. I'm optimistic. We've got a growing population in the world. They need protein. We want to make sure that beef is at the center of the plate for that protein need. And I'm very optimistic. And things change continually. That's why we have to have membership in NCBA to make sure a lot of the outside influences, such as the government influences, don't distract us and get us off target. But I'm very optimistic, and I think there's a good future in the cattle industry.
Yeah, but clearly it is challenging. It's a huge capital-intensive industry. Would you agree?
Well, very much so.
And
very much so.
I think in some cases you see some interesting things going on with folks that may not have sons or daughters wanting to come back, and other young folks being able to link into that as well. So.
There's a lot of creativity. I mean, there's no two operations are the same. That's what I've always said, and people have to work with what they have to make it work.
You bet.
But you have to be optimistic as well, and it'll work out.
I tell people, with as much as I spent on feed the last couple of years in drought, you have to be an optimist, right?
That's true.
Jim from Kansas is calling. Jim, go ahead with your question. Jim, are you there? Well, I'm going to go to Ryan. Ryan, we had an email question earlier. Dean emailed us and asked a specific question about BQA. He said he completed BQA just several years ago. Does he need to be recertified?
Yes, Kevin. Beef Quality Assurance National Standards state that your certification is good for 3 years. And after that period of time, it's time to go get recertified. So we encourage everyone to go to their local state BQA program. Wherever it may be. They're usually somewhere close by, and you get a great opportunity to get recertified. And the reason for this, especially in the past 6 or 7 years, we've seen things in the beef industry change really quick. So much faster than we have in the past. So it's a really good idea to go back and get recertified so you can learn about some of the new best management practices out there that affect safety, quality, animal well-being, and those kinds of things that are really important to not only us producers, but also to the consumer.
Very good. We'll come to our home state of Colorado here. JT's on the line. JT, go ahead with your question. Are you there, JT? All right. Well, I'll move to another question. This one for Kate, I believe. I'm a member of my state association. They talk a lot about NCBA. What does being a member of NCBA do for my state association?
Sure, that's a great question. You know, the state-national partnership that we have with our state affiliates is really critical. It's not only forefront to being able to successfully defend this industry and work together, but it's really at the core of the policymaking process for NCBA. A state membership is great, and by being an NCBA member, you're making your state membership more effective, because the more state members a state has, the better chance of bringing forward policy that your state wants to see instituted nationally. So it really makes your state membership a lot more effective and our partnership stronger.
Very good. Well, in addition to answering your questions this evening, our membership team, they're standing by to provide their personal assistance in helping you become an NCBA member. The number to call for questions about membership or to join tonight is 1-866-USA-BEEF. Let's change the pace for just a minute now and turn to some of the cattle producers we visited with recently. And we asked them, what message would you like to deliver to Congress? Here's what they said.
I would like to see Congress get to work and solve the problems that we need to have solved, a farm bill, an immigration reform, and we are there every day working with them, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with them, but we need action.
Let's get some legislation done, let's get a farm bill passed, and you know, they're there to serve the people, and they need to put their partisan politics behind them and get some things done.
We need some leadership. We need some leadership in Congress, in the Senate. We need somebody to kind of stand up and provide some vision for this country, not one election cycle to the next.
My message is I want less taxes, and if you have to do less for me, do less, but don't keep raising my taxes and trying to protect me from cradle to grave. Let us do some of our own things, and we don't need more government. We need less government and less taxes.
Again, I want to remind you that we're taking your questions live on the air tonight. Give us a call at 1-888-824-6688, or you can email us your questions, as some already have, at c2c@beef.org. Now let's get back to the phone lines. And Jim, you've been patient. You're calling from Kansas with a heifer retention question, I'm told.
Yeah, Kevin. My question is, I was wondering if we're truly seeing an increase in breeding heifer retention, what are the impacts on this on beef supplies and on the fed cattle markets?
Well, I bet if you're buying some feeder cattle, you've studied that just a little bit, J.D. What would you say to Jim?
The first thing to remember is that we're at the lowest numbers we've been in over 60 years, and we've been waiting for retention and to build the herd again. The market is a market. I mean, you're always going to have a cattle market. It just never know how it operates and fluctuates. We used to have a 10-year cycle. That's really not the case anymore. We need to keep promoting our product. We have to keep producing more cattle. We're hoping it is, retention is taking place. We can build the herd, because we do have a big opportunity out there, and we want to make sure that beef, once again, is the protein of choice. So.
But do you see it impacting the cattle market as you go out to buy some feeder cattle yet, or not yet?
It certainly does. I mean, there's a number of reasons for the impact too. Lower feed costs and less numbers, so the cost is looking as an example of that. Luckily, we've had a change in the fat market as well. We've seen an increase that. It's record prices. Part of it is to maintain it, and hopefully we'll have to do that. And it's all a big cycle, and you just got to be able to keep at it. And I think it'll be a good one in the long run here.
I've heard some reports out of Nebraska with some feeder cattle, 5-weight kind of heifers that come in and start selling by the head just because there's that heifer retention demand, and bring $1,100-$1,200 on off the cows. Wyatt from Arkansas is on the line. Wyatt, thanks for your call.
Thank you. I was wondering, what is the current status on death tax, and how it will affect future farmers.
You know, you all fought the great fight on that one, Christina. Tell us the achievements that you've made and give Wyatt a status on the death tax.
So last year we were successful in actually making the death tax permanent, which actually provides a lot of certainty for cattle producers throughout the country. The levels of the death tax that we were able to get permanent is $5 million for individuals, $10 million for married couples. Anything above that would be a 45% tax on top of that, but it does have the stepped up basis, and it's also indexed for inflation, which was a large victory for the cattle industry as well for agriculture to get that permanency in the tax code. Prior to that, we always had these one-year exemptions where we had exemption levels increased for just a short period. And then at the last minute, it was possibly going to revert back to the pre-2000 levels of a $1 million exemption level, regardless married or single, at a 55% tax rate. So even though we continue to talk to members of Congress and NCBA endorses legislation on full repeal of the death tax, it's really just not in the cards right now for this Congress to fully repeal it. So we were very happy about the House and the Senate making it permanent. So that way, hopefully, our family farmers and ranches can continue to plan future years out and then not have to worry about what Congress is going to do at the last minute to make it retroactive or to what they're going to do on the tax moving forward.
Congratulations, the entire team.
The previous questions have been about the future of the industry,
Yeah.
and that probably was the single biggest thing that we could have done.
Yeah.
You know, literally what there was going to sunset to would have made it impossible to pass to the next generation.
You bet.
So a big win and a big key, and we'll keep an eye on it.
We'll head to the Sooner State in Oklahoma. Ron, you're on the line.
Well, I was curious about, you know, I'm just starting out. I've got 10 mama cows and a bull and 100 acres. And what is the future of a guy like me that's just trying to cash flow it himself from a day job to leave something that my kids could enjoy when they get older?
It's another great question. You know, the reality is that we know the cattle industry, unlike the hog industry, is made up of a lot of producers across the country that have less than 30 or 40 head. So Ron is not unique in his situation, but I think the question he's asking is, what are the prospects for the future of taking that and building it into an operation that you know, does provide some opportunity for his kids? Ryan, JD, you have thoughts? Yeah, Ryan, go for it.
I would say that the cattle industry has never been more volatile, and to make mistakes can be really easy.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to make sure that we're continually learning and improving, you know, our financial techniques or our production techniques so that we make less mistakes. You know, my grandpa made a lot more mistakes than my dad did, and I hope my brother and I make a lot less mistakes than they did, because there's not a big margin for error now. So it's really honest to make sure that producer education is something that's top of mind.
Sure.
BQA is a great start, but NCBA has a great producer education program.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State University has one of the premier extension programs out there for beef cattle. There's a lot of great resources out there, and NCBA is a good place to come to find some of those producer education opportunities.
JD, you have any?
You know, there is something as economies of scale, which in agriculture and oil has seen.
Yeah.
But I'll also say that the cattle industry is not cookie cutter.
That's right.
And we've got all sizes. And I can tell you that from the smallest to the largest, they all have problems. Yeah. And but they all have opportunity as well. Yeah. So, you know, to give a flat answer, it's a lot of it is the instances around his operation and each individual. And you know, you just have to do what's right with the environment and the land and everything you've got, and hopefully it'll be successful. But there's no guarantee. It's a tough business.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other opportunity for NCBA is the networking that's created, right? You find new different business models. I know we're involved in a satellite operation and so forth, so there's different things that you can plug into different operations, and in some cases I know people have 25 cows that raise great show steers, and I know people that have 40 or 50 cows have a local branded beef business, and they're finding ways to maximize revenue based on your point that they have different business models, different resources available, and they just get creative, right?
Well, at NCBA, that's what we strive for, is to give information.
Yeah.
You know, we're coming up on a convention that's going to have the Cattlemen's College.
Yeah.
We have programs that are geared just to this type of operation, and we're always striving to learn something new and that's why people need to belong, is to get that information to be successful.
Couldn't say it better myself. And to become a member of NCBA, the nation's largest cattle industry organization, and join us in the effort to expand the global market for U.S. beef, give us a call right now. Our panel of membership experts is standing by to answer your calls throughout tonight's live broadcast. Just dial toll-free 1-866-USA-BEEF. We'll take more of your questions on the issues that impact your bottom line as a cattleman right after this. Stay with us.
I'm an NCBA member.
I'm an NCBA member because I think as an advocacy group, NCBA has done some great things for our industry, and I kind of feel compelled to give back some of what they've done for us.
Because this organization is looking out for cattle producers.
They understand what makes our cow-calf business profitable.
Join me today.
Join me today.
Join NCBA today. Head to beefusa.org or call 866-USA-BEEF.
I'm Scott George, president of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, inviting you to follow me to Tennessee. We'll be right here in Nashville doing important work, having some fun and fellowship in historic places like the Grand Ole Opry. So make your plans to join us in Nashville February 4th through the 7th, 2014. We'll see you there.
No storm is too powerful for new Purina Wind and Rain Storm Minerals, formulated with ultimate weather resistance. That means more minerals in the feeder and available to your cattle. Wind and Rain Storm Minerals provide more consistent intake and balanced mineral nutrition to optimize herd health and breedback rates. See the difference at your local Purina dealer or visit cattlenutrition.com. Wind and Rain Storm Minerals, another way Purina is building better cattle.
Welcome back, and thanks again for joining us for this special live edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. There's never been a more important time to become an NCBA member than right now. The uncertainty our nation's capital and the constant threat of regulation make it important to have an organization like NCBA standing up for our industry. To become a member tonight, call us now. Our staff is standing by. Just dial 1-866-USA-BEEF. And of course, you can call us right now with your questions, and that number is 1-888-824-6688. Now we'll begin with a caller from Kansas. I believe we've got Buddy on the line. Buddy, what's your question?
Yeah, I was wondering if the Farm Bill, when it's passed, will that help with the drought we've had the last couple of years?
Probably won't help with a drought, but maybe drought assistance, right? But Christina, tell us, what will it matter if, in fact, we get a Farm Bill in potentially December, you're suggesting? What will that mean relative to drought assistance?
So disaster assistance is where drought assistance would fall under that title. Okay. And what we're looking at right now, both versions of the Farm Bill do have disaster assistance. What a lot of people don't realize is that in 2008, that Farm Bill only authorized disaster assistance for 4 years, not 5 years. So producers have been without that safety net for the last 2 years simply because we don't have authorization of programs for the local FSA offices to actually carry forward. But both versions of the Farm Bill actually have strong disaster programs included, and they make it retroactive to the 2 previous years. So producers that either had to directly deal with the drought or the more recent floods and blizzards, as long as they're keeping receipts and documenting their expenses, they'll be able to actually apply for that disaster assistance once this Farm Bill is voted and signed into law by the President, which we're hoping will happen before the end of the year.
Yes, very good. We have Baxter Black calling us from line 3. Baxter, my goodness, it's good to hear from you. What's going on?
Hey, how impressive that whole bunch looked up there.
We're missing you.
Looked every one of them in the eye, but I have a legitimate question.
Okay.
Do I save back the 20 heifers that I'm going to the sale with that are going to bring probably $170 a pound, and do I save them back and then in 2 years get a calf, or do I go in and buy heifers that are going to sell, bred heifers that are going to sell for, say, $1,400 each, and they'll give me something next year?
Well, now, I know you went to veterinary school. That sounds like an economic question. We'll ask a cattle feeder what he thinks about that. JD, what would you tell Baxter?
Your question is a tough one, and I don't know if anybody has the right answer. I guess I would say, Baxter, if we all knew that and could answer that, we'd all do the right thing. But that's part of the market. Everybody has to do it different. Everybody's got a different program, and we do think that it's starting to expand now, which we need. Yep. But boy, the prices are very good. Yep. You can't deny that. These prices are record, and are they sustainable? Hopefully so. Hopefully they'll get higher. But that's the way the market, and that's why we've got one. And I guess it's anybody's guess of what the future will bring on that. Yeah, and there's, I think there's a lot of people asking the question of saying, hey, that's a real live ticket. Yep. Baxter's saying he can get cash on the barrel and turn around and buy a heifer that's going to give him a ticket this next year. My question to you, Baxter, are you going to find some good heifers for $1,400? Because that's a little cheaper than the ones I've heard about.
Well, I live in an area where that is possible to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you got some...
Did JD actually give me an answer?
I think he was wondering what the those cattle FOB Pilgrim, Nebraska would cost him, and you give him a call after this, maybe he'll buy those heifers for probably $1.50 a pound is what you'd offer him, wouldn't you? Yeah.
So you aren't going to give me any advice, huh?
I don't think so. We need Randy Block on the and then we'll get him.
Great. That's the
right
thing we need.
Let's go to. Do you guys have advice? Ryan, what would you tell Baxter? You're talking to a lot of producers.
Baxter, if I were you, I would, speaking of Randy, I would probably sell my heifers now and buy replacement heifers. Yeah. But, you know, at our house, we've spent 40 years working on our genetics, and it's really hard for us to let our heifers go and buy somebody else's. So it's really a tough question, but, you know, it just depends on your situation. And sometimes one in the hand's worth two in the bush.
Yeah, it sure seems like $1,400 bred heifer. If the markets do what I think they're going to do, that'll heifer will work pretty good in the next year. What's the latest status on the RFS mandate being ratcheted down? That comes to us from Clint in South Dakota. Christina, you want to? Yeah.
Great question. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, they're the agency that has the jurisdiction over the RFS, or Renewable Fuel Standard, which dictates how much ethanol, and corn-based ethanol, has to be blended into gasoline. We've heard that the EPA is actually looking at lowering their projections for 2014. That has not been finalized or released yet, but that's really kind of what we're hearing, the chatter amongst folks in Washington, D.C. That would be good news from a cattleman's perspective, from NCBA's perspective. We're also working on Capitol Hill to support legislation that would bring reform to the RFS, specifically the mandate on what is mandated by law to be blended into gasoline.
Very good.
Yeah, well, I think the thing we always have said, that the cattlemen are not against ethanol or the byproducts. Okay. The thing all we were asking for is a level playing field to buy corn without anybody having advantage over the other. It is interesting that after a year of drought, they didn't do much, and now that we're back into some better crops, they're considering different numbers. So it is kind of interesting.
It is. We have David calling from Florida. David, thanks for your call tonight. Are you there, David? Yes? Okay, we'll move on. We have Dwayne, who emailed us a question. This is a great question. Is beef losing market share to poultry and pork as a result of limited cattle supplies, and can we increase our market share again? You know, it's wonderful to be talking about some of these higher fed cattle prices, and clearly as feedlot operators, you needed some higher fed cattle prices. But the question becomes, even from a pricing standpoint, limited cattle supplies, are we making this product so expensive that we lose market share? What's your thought?
From what I've been able to gather, I don't think we are. You have to remember, during this high price of feed, where corn was up at the $8 or whatever, it was also that way for pork and poultry. Yeah. So they didn't just have a windfall with it. The indications are that we've held our own. We realize that we're still trying to promote our product with our checkoff dollars. We realize that those dollars are dwindling. Does not quite have the buying power that it did many years ago, so we're trying to do the best we can with our checkoff dollars. But I think to directly answer the question, I think we're holding our own right now.
Very good. The issues we're talking over tonight and many more will be on the agenda next February at the Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show. You'll find outstanding producer education there at Cattlemen's College, as well as policy and market outlooks, great entertainment, and of course, the big NCBA Trade Show. You can register now and reserve your spot by visiting beefusa.org. Now don't go away, we'll have more on this special live edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen right after this.
I'm an NCBA member.
I'm an NCBA member because I think as an advocacy group, NCBA has done some great things for our industry, and I kind of feel compelled to give back some of what they've done for us.
Because this organization is looking out for cattle producers.
They understand what makes our cow-calf business profitable.
Join me today.
Join me today.
Join NCBA today. Head to beefusa.org or call 866-USA-BEEF.
Its arrival is as routine as the truck that brings the next load of calves. You stand ready, waiting, watching for symptoms. A revolutionary new weapon in hand, unique chemistry and hard-hitting active ingredient. Longer duration in the respiratory tract, rapid absorption. Join the Zuprevolution. Zuprevo, Tilda Pearson. See your veterinarian.
Join producers from around the country at the 2014 Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville, Tennessee.
It's an event that we will never miss.
I love seeing the enthusiasm. I think it's great.
It's a perfect combination and the perfect time to hold the NCBA convention.
Join your fellow cattlemen for the latest cattle industry news, education, networking, and fun. Plus, at the NCBA Trade Show, get the latest in industry technology for the cattle business.
This trade show is one of the best trade shows that is out there. It's amazing the amount of industry and businesses that come here to be a part in. And there's no other place that, for those of us as beef producers, can go to have this much information in one place.
So follow me to Tennessee for the 2014 Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville, February 4th through the 7th. Learn more at beefusa.org.
Welcome back to this special live edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. It's a great time to join the oldest and largest organization representing the nation's cattlemen. Give us a call at 1-866-USA-BEEF to become a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Our staff is standing by right now to take your membership calls. And once again, our panel of experts is here tonight to address the issues that are on your mind. So if you have a question, give us a call. Call to ask the experts, and the number you want to dial is 1-888-824-6688. Or again, you can email us your question at c2c@beef.org. And we already have another caller on the line. Linda's calling from North Dakota. Linda, thanks so much for calling in tonight. What can we help you with?
Hello?
Yes, Linda, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm from actually Fountain Hills, Arizona, and my question is, with the freeze in South Dakota at the beginning of October, I was wondering if that is going to affect the supply of beef and or the price of beef in the future.
Christina, have you heard the final count numbers? I've heard everything from 15,000 to 30,000, and there were earlier numbers that were higher than that. JD?
I think the latest numbers, they did start much higher. They estimated to begin with they could have been up towards 100,000. As ranchers finally found some of their stock and got it recovered, the number we're hearing now is closer to 25,000. Yeah. That's in just South Dakota alone. Of course, western Nebraska lost some, as well as Wyoming. But I think the question was, is that going to affect the market? First off, you hate when everything like that's happened. And will it affect the market? I would say maybe locally it sure might, because those cattle would be going to market up in the South Dakota or western Nebraska area. But I think in the big scheme of things, while we don't like to see that, the market's it is what it is, and I don't think you're going to see a big repercussion from that.
Yeah, unfortunately, was not an equal opportunity employer. It certainly affects the people that own those cattle. I believe we have Colin. Is that correct, from Louisiana? Go ahead,
right.
Colin.
Yes, with the recent reform of EPA's spill containment program, what other things would the association like to have taken a look at as far as being reformed for possible regulatory overreach and whatnot?
EPA's kind of giving you almost a full-time job, haven't they?
They are.
Christina?
We actually have one staffer dedicated just to EPA issues
Wow.
in D.C.
Yep.
But Colin, that's a great question. On the EPA's rule on spill prevention, containment, and countermeasure, we've actually been pushing for an exemption. We've actually have 3 tracks right now that we're working with in Congress. One is in the Senate on the WRDA, which is a water reauthorization bill, focusing on bridges and infrastructure. But we do have language that would exempt containers on farms up to 6,000 gallons. However, in the House Farm Bill, we have language that we worked with Congressman Crawford from Arkansas that would actually exempt facilities up to 10,000 gallons. And then the legislation by itself was actually marked up favorably out of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in the House. So hopefully, with one of these 3 vehicles moving forward, we'll be able to get that exemption on the EPA front this year. On the Farm Bill front, we also have on the Freedom of Information Act, where EPA released the personal information, longitude and latitude of family farms earlier this year for 80,000 livestock producers. We actually have language in the House Farm Bill that would not allow EPA to hand over that information unless they got the producer's consent or they redacted all information. Wow. And then on the Clean Water Act, that continues to be a top of mind issue for our association and our cattle members, making sure that EPA doesn't try to remove the word navigable from waters of the United States. So that way it would actually give them stronger jurisdiction on any type of water, not just any water that's free flowing into a larger body that is regulated by the government. So lots of things on the EPA front. Hopefully the Farm Bill can give us some reform that we're looking for and we've been working for the last few years, but we will be watching on the Clean Water Act front, very much so.
And that's just another reason to become an NCBA member. There's no way that a guy like me can keep track of everything you've just said, and I'm glad somebody's in Washington doing that.
You know, we always say that we realize there's going to be regulation, and we understand that, but all too often it's undue regulation and over the top, and that's why exactly what you said is correct. We've got to have people there day in and day out that know ahead of time what's going to happen, can either go pro or con against something, looking out for the good and the betterment of the producers.
I'm told I've got Ashlyn from Colorado calling, and I'm hopeful this is not a question about chores. Is this my Ashlyn, or who is this?
This is your Ashlyn.
What do you need, Ashlyn?
Well, I was wondering, when are you going to take me to the convention?
When? Oh, my goodness. Well, that's true. I took her older sister several years ago, and I think, Ashlyn, we'll have to see how the grades are looking by February, okay?
Okay.
Answer that?
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Ashlyn. What's your other question?
And also, what kind of events should a young person like me get involved in at the convention?
Oh, Kate, what kind of events can young people get involved in an NCBA and specifically convention?
There's some really great opportunities for people of all ages at the convention. You know, Ashlyn is the future of our industry, and we'll be excited to have her there this year, Kevin, if you so desire. You know, there's lots of fun events. The trade show is just a great way to meet a lot of people and kind of understand the products that are out there and where the industry's heading. There's really fun meetings to go to. You know, we have some young producer groups that will do some things. So really, we just encourage the young folks to come and get involved.
Yeah, it's a great time. We'll talk about that later, Ashlyn, okay? Make sure chores are done. All right, I had an email question, Ryan, for you again, and this speaks to convention. What opportunities are there at convention to get BQA trained or recertified? Are there opportunities actually at convention, Ryan?
Yes, there is. This year, the Tennessee Cattlemen are working with NCBA to put together a beef quality assurance program on February 4th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So anybody that would like to learn more about beef quality assurance, make sure you look for that at the National Convention.
Very good. And now we'll head to Florida. Ron is on the line. Ron, thank you for calling. What's your question?
Well, I just, you know, we love cattle, and we raise a lot of them down here.
Yes, sir.
And we like to feed them corn once in a while. We like to eat corn. And I'm perplexed as to how we can stimulate the government to go to alternative sources for ethanol, like silage and other forms of vegetation, instead of burning good feed.
So it's an interesting question, and again, you mentioned it before, but JD, you're a cattle feeder, and you are kind of in the heart of this debate around, at one level, again, you feed ethanol byproducts, at another level, clearly corn has been high priced the last couple of years, and there have been some subsidies that you as a cattle feeder don't get, while your ethanol brethren do get it when they purchase corn and compete against you. What would your response to Ron be?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Unfortunately, it's what has happened, and I guess a political process that started, the RFS got involved, and there was quite a bit of subsidy with it. We've been very fortunate that we've been able to drop some of that. One of the last things now is the RFS, which appears to be maybe becoming negotiable. You know, the challenge is agriculture. You never want to be derogatory to any part of agriculture, and that's really a challenge. And that's what we always say, is that we've never been against ethanol. We utilize it, we put it in our pickups, we feed it, et cetera, all the byproducts. But you know, the thing that we've always said is we've got to be on a competitive, comparable market. I would love to have a mandate say that everybody has to buy 30% of their protein has to be beef.
Yeah.
But that's not our luck, and it'll never happen. But you know, all we're asking for is a level playing field to buy the product corn.
And I think the only thing I would say is clearly the cure for high prices is high prices. We're seeing, what, a 14 billion bushel corn crop this year. Farmers have demonstrated that when given the incentive to raise corn, they can raise a lot of it, and the prices have responded a bit. So our staff is standing by right now to take your membership calls, to cowboy up with your fellow cattlemen and women as members of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Please give us a call. The number is 1-866-USA-BEEF to join now. We'll be back with more Cattleman to Cattleman live right after this.
To stay up to date on beef industry news and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, check out beefusa.org. You'll find news on both the Federation of State Beef Councils and the work of NCBA on Capitol Hill. Plus, link to NCBA programs like the blog, Beltway Beef, updates on the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, and the latest from NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Connect today at beefusa.org. New Holland equipment is built smart for the way you farm, and the T6 series tractors from New Holland are the ideal mid-range tractors for cattlemen. Whether your job is loader work, operating hay equipment, moving round bales, or pulling a mixer wagon, the T6 provides power and performance with optimal comfort. Choose from 3 4-cylinder and 3 6-cylinder models with the right combination of transmission, hydraulic, and cab options to fit specific haying or row crop applications. And T6 engines are Tier 4A emissions compliant, featuring New Holland's exclusive EcoBlue technology. Visit your New Holland dealer to learn more about the complete lineup of New Holland equipment, in addition to all of the benefits available to cattle producers.
Hello, I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Each week, we travel the country to bring you the latest cattle industry news and information. Check us out at cattlemantocattleman.org or on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm an NCBA member.
I'm an NCBA member because I think as an advocacy group, NCBA has done some great things for our industry, and I kind of feel compelled to give back some of what they've done for us.
Because this organization is looking out for cattle producers.
They understand what makes our cow-calf business profitable.
Join me today.
Join me today.
Join NCBA today. Head to beefusa.org or call 866-USA-BEEF.
With the advent of third-party verification, cowmen are able to add value to their calves by preconditioning or early weaning, or seek specialty markets like all-natural, sugar-free, or do source and age verification for export. Well, that's what IMI does, and it's not as expensive as you might think. Call them. What do you got to lose? IMI Global's green ear tag. It's like having Honest Abe co-sign your note. IMIGlobal.com.
Let's face it, you don't think a lot about your trailer hitch. You use it and forget it. We understand. But at B&W, we think about it. Short nights, long hauls, never-ending chores, the unthinkable. We think about it all, so you don't have to. B&W. Trusted.
Evening, Joe. Evening, Joe. I hope I didn't wake y'all. I know it's after 7, but I got a little problem, so to speak. I don't know how to tell this. I feel a little dumb, but that little dog I had run off last week. Yeah, that bouncing blue-eyed mongrel, you know the one I mean. He rides with me and sleeps on Mother's lap. And, well, we got him when the kids left just a year or two ago, and I reckon that he sort of fills a gap. Yeah, well, I was up on Saddle Mountain to scatter out some salt, and he must have fell out when I started home. And I came out down by your place, and you know, if he shows up there, I'd appreciate a jingle on the phone. Yeah, I know he really isn't worth much, but Ma got plumb upset. Seems round the ranch he's made himself a star. Nah, I'm not really worried, but you know, the way she carried on, I better find him. You know how women are. Well, I phoned all the neighbors, and I backtracked to the camp, and I've called for him, and my throat is sore, and you know, I really wouldn't bother, but you know, I like the little cuss. Just a minute, Joe. There's someone at the door. Oh. Yeah, I'm glad you're back. Yeah, you're a good dog. Yeah. Hey, Joe, you'll never guess. Ma, come take a look at this. He's back. Say, Joe, I'll see you at the Brandon, huh? You crazy little booger. Come get Daddy's lap. See you, Joe, and hey, Joe, thanks for understanding. This is Baxter Black and Sweetie from out there.
And thanks, Baxter. Now, don't forget, it's a great time to join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. It's easy to do, and we're waiting to hear from you. Our staff is taking your membership calls right now. Just dial toll-free 1-866-USA-BEEF to become an NCBA member. Don't forget, you can register online for the 2014 Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville, Tennessee. We're less than 3 months away, so it's not too early to start making your plans right now. I hope we'll see you next February 4th through the 7th in Music City. That's Nashville, Tennessee. Now, I want to go back to our panel for some final thoughts, but before we do, we go to a caller from, I believe it's Farley, Missouri, or is it Farley from Missouri?
Farley from Missouri.
Go ahead, sir. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I've got some problems with some calves. They're scouring really bad. It started back in May with all the rain, and only thing we've kind of maybe tried to narrow it down to is maybe E. coli. Any other thoughts? It could be feed related or anything, grass?
What would you tell him? Clearly this weather has created lots of problems, lots of challenges. Ryan, any thoughts of what you'd tell Farley?
Well, Farley, I would say that what you need to do is to contact your veterinarian. It's really important to work with someone that understands this. You might need to culture to see if it's E. coli or Salmonella or another pathogen. That's might be the only way that you can get ahead of this. And so your veterinarian is going to be your best bet to help you with this problem.
Very good. Could be a nutritional issue too, you don't know, right? Well, I do want to get some final thoughts from you folks before we close tonight. JD, let's start with you.
You know, beef producers, no matter what segment you're in, face a multitude of issues. And that's why I always relied on my professional association, which is NCBA, to be on the lookout for me. We've got issues that we'll tackle that we don't avoid any. And some may not be popular, but when you agree with 99% of them, that's a pretty good organization. and we've got to have representation. Everybody out there could do it themselves, but they don't have the time to do it. So that's why we have great staff to be on the lookout for our betterment and well-being.
Christina, real quick.
So if you're a member of NCBA, our team in DC is working for you literally around the clock on watching what's going to come out from Capitol Hill as well as the regulatory side. Quite frankly, we're only successful in DC because of our membership. Our grassroots help us be successful on a whole host of issues, from the Farm Bill to border security, immigration, trade, transportation. So if you're not a member, I'd encourage you to join just to help support what the beef industry needs to have done with regard to policy in Washington.
Ryan.
I just want to remind everyone that the Checkoff-funded Beef Quality Assurance Program is important to every farmer and rancher and cattle feeder in this country. If you're not certified, please look at getting certified. Or if you haven't been certified for the past 3 years, you need to get recertified. It's the right thing to do, but more importantly, it's our contract with the consumer to let them know that they can trust us. And in this day and age, they have a lot to not trust, and we got to give them every reason to believe in the beef that we serve them every day. So I encourage everyone to go to bqa.org to learn more about how they can get certified at face-to-face or online.
And got to run quick, Kate, but real quick.
You know, NCBA isn't just the oldest and largest National Cattlemen's Association. We're also growing, and that's really exciting. And what that tells me is that our members are going to be the ones to set direction for the future of this industry, and we need everybody to do so.
Very good. Thanks so much to our panel members tonight, J.D. Alexander, Christina Butts, Ryan Rupert, and of course Kate Maher. Thanks for all of you that do NCBA, and to our great cattle industry. And thanks for watching tonight. Good night.